Alright guys, so this channel is two things over its lifespan. Retro at first, and then switching to PSVR 2, and this video is going to talk about a bit of both. First, retro. Is anybody else going to Revival in Wolverhampton next weekend? June 8th and 9th. Big retro gaming convention in Wolverhampton. I'm going to be there on Sunday the 9th. So looking forward to playing loads of cool old retro stuff. I'm really hoping there's an Atari Star Wars with a proper yoke controller. Oh god, I'd love to play that again. I've seen that in an arcade for a long time. Although I haven't really been going to arcades, so there's that. Revival game not over. So you're looking forward to that. And this is kind of I wasn't planning on going, but the stars seem to have aligned for it to make sense for me to go to that. So if anybody's going, let me know. It'd be cool to meet up and say hello. A friend of mine on YouTube, Adam Koralik, is there, I believe, as a guest, as a speaker. I don't know if he's doing some kind of podcast or whatever. I'm sure he'll be doing something there. But he's bringing with him the Sega Pluto, which was like an internal sort of proof of concept console that was never released by Sega. I believe it's like a variation on the Saturn. Is it something like that? Sort of a Saturn Mega Drive combination? I'm not quite sure what the Pluto is. I'm sure he's done a video on it, and I'm sure I've watched it, but at the moment I can't. It's a very sort of rare Sega prototype, basically, and it's probably the most well-travelled console in history, because Adam takes this Pluto that he's looking after everywhere, and he's he's very international guy. He really he gets his air miles in, and this Pluto goes with him. So, but yeah, Adam hit me up. He says, "Oh, you come to this Revival thing? Be good to see you." So I was like, you know what? I hadn't thought about going, but now that you mention it, I says to him, this kind of dovetails with something else that I've got going on. So I've had a Nintendo Virtual Boy for many, many, many years. I actually really enjoyed several of the games on it. Very unique experiences. I actually still think it's a shame it never took off a little bit more. It never even got a second wave of games. Like if it even just got a couple of years worth of games, uh, we'd have something special there. But it was such a short-lived thing, the Virtual Boy, an experiment by Nintendo that absolutely failed. Although again, and this is in the 90s, and it was this really unique, immersive experience, very different from anything else we'd ever seen in video games at that time. Just to have that 3D depth perception in games, and yes, it was like that sort of simple red and black graphics, but some of the games really made the most of that hardware. And my favorite game on there is called Red Alarm, which basically feels like you're in Atari Star Wars, but sort of with free movement and a 3D sort of wireframe shoot 'em up, but you've got full 6 degrees of freedom movement. So up, down, left, right, forward, back, whatever. It just feels it works really well. Point being, I had a Virtual Boy and it stopped working. Many years ago, I did the infamous oven fix, which is where you take out a piece of the Virtual Boy circuitry or a board, whatever, ribbon with a board, and you stick it in the oven for just a few seconds to warm up the glue, and then you press it back together, and you can fix this very common fault that a Virtual Boy has, which is that you develop these sort of lines over the screen. It looks really shit. And sometimes you can lose the connection altogether because it's just the glue, the connection from the ribbon to the board for the screens just was rubbish. So I had this very common flaw. And but the oven fix doesn't last forever. There's the only other way of really fixing an old Virtual Boy with that fault is to do a very fine soldering job. So it needs to be a very skilled person who does it. And this is all dovetailing. It's all links together. So again, many years ago, talking maybe 10 years ago, around that, not long off 10 years ago, Adam Coralic actually hooked me up with somebody in the Netherlands who was able to do this soldering fix, this permanent fix for the Virtual Boy. And I got in touch with the guy, and I was saying, yeah, I'm going to send this Virtual Boy to you. He's going to fix it for me at, I don't know, mates rates or whatever. But it just never happened. I never got around to sending it off. I don't, one thing or another. It wasn't a massive priority. Just goes on the back burner, and then you forget about it. It's one of those. It was up in the loft, I did, out of sight, out of mind, and so I had this connection to get it fixed, and it just never happened. And time went on, and I kind of forgot about it again. It's in a box somewhere in the loft, and then it completely goes off my radar of things to do. So I lose that connection. Many years later, I start thinking, because I've been playing VR now since 2016, and really, really love VR gaming. So then it got me nostalgic to want to go back and play the Virtual Boy again. And so I started looking into trying and get it fixed again. And I didn't have that sort of connection with the guy in Holland anymore. It's just long since passed. So I started looking elsewhere. There's somewhere in America that fixes it, but obviously, and it was a good price to get it fixed. You could get the replacement parts as well as the installation for a good price. But sending it off to America, quite a big sort of fragile thing. It's going to cost as much to get it shipped there and back as it is to get it fixed. So again, that was something I didn't jump on because of the cost of doing it. And then I forgot about it again for a while. And then I found a place in the UK, and a lot of you will know about a person who runs a Facebook page, a service, a company called Retro Repair Bear. And this is a lady who is doing repairs on retro hardware. And I got in touch with Retro Repair Bear and says, I've got this Virtual Boy, and it's got the dreaded lines fault, and I want to get the proper fix. And a bit of back and forth, and she's agreed to do it. I've sent it off, and this was a couple of months ago. She had a backlog of jobs to get to, so it's been a couple of months since I've sent the Virtual Boy off to Retro Repair Bear, and she's getting around to it now, just in time for Revival in Wolverhampton, which Retro Repair Bear will be at. So it's just all kind of come together. The stars have aligned, and so I'm going to pick up my Virtual Boy, fresh from being repaired and upgraded, at Revival. So I'm going to bring some games, some batteries, because you got to remember the Virtual Boy is cam powered, plugged in, but also batteries. So I'm going to pick it up there, and I'm going to bring some games along to play that. If anybody fancies having a go on a Virtual Boy, I would expect a Virtual Boy may be there at Revival anyway, because they have all the different old systems lined up for people to try. But I'm going to have mine there, my own personal unit, and it'll be nice to get back on that. So yeah, looking forward to Retro Revival. So get your tickets down below. There'll be a link in the information bar. It's on for 2 days, the 8th and the 9th, next weekend. I will be there on the 9th. So yeah, let's hook up if you're there, say hello. So that's the retro portion of this video. The other focus that this channel has had over the last 11, 12 years, however long it's been that I've had it, is become VR. So Sony had a recent State of Play, and they showed a couple of VR games, and they looked really cool. Skydance showed Behemoth, which they're the guys that made Walking Dead Saints and Sinners chapters 1 and 2. Arguably the best VR games in existence, like pure VR games, not hybrid. Just it could be argued that Saints, especially chapter 2, but taken as a pair, it could be argued that is the best dedicated VR game that there's been. Just so good physics, brilliant graphics, especially on PSVR 2, the chapter 2. Real sense of presence and weight to everything in the game. good challenge, just atmospheric, fantastic. And yeah, they spent the last few years working on this new game, and we've finally seen some gameplay footage, and it really does look like they are again leaning into their strengths of in-game physics and interactions, and the combat looks good. And yeah, really looking forward to Behemoth, and that's coming end of this year apparently. But take as long as you like. Say this about any game. There's been delays have been quite common to games recently, and we don't care, do we? We'd rather the game was delayed and was better when it came out finally than have a shoddy launch and then stuttering through several months of updates to get a game to where it finally needs to be able to be excited about it, by which time most people have already played it and the hype's died. So yeah, I think studios are starting to learn that. But I'm talking about that because Behemoth was delayed for a whole year. So they did that the right way. It was already supposed to be out by now, and they realised that they needed some significant time to really get this game up to where they wanted it to be. So they delayed it for a whole year. They're obviously lucky enough to be in a situation where they're able to be able to afford to delay a game for that long, because Saints and Sinners did sell so well. Not all studios have that luxury. I know. It must be the case that a lot of these sort of rushed releases or games that come out needing several patches and extra content updates, it's because of deadlines, it's because of budgets, it's because of pressures to get games out and start making money back off your investment. It's a whole mess of shit, isn't it, really? We have to be a little bit understanding as gamers these days. It's just how it is. The economics of things, especially as a VR gamer, which leads into the main thing I want to say about the state of play. Of course, the main story, although it was shown gameplay or certainly footage of two fantastic VR games coming our way that are coming this year and that are really exciting, things to really look forward to. Despite that, it was overshadowed somewhat. The commentary on this state of play for VR enthusiasts was overshadowed by the fact that Astrobot, the new Astrobot game, doesn't have VR support. Didn't mention it at all. Whether they plan on adding that at a later date, they've not indicated as such yet. And I think it would have been daft not to mention it now if they do plan on adding it later, because they must know that so many PSVR 1 fans, PSVR fans, are waiting on a new Astrobot game, because it was such a beloved game, Rescue Mission on PSVR 1, and one of the best-selling VR games, and just oozed quality and charm, and it just fit the medium perfectly. It was just a joy to play, a nice length campaign, loads and loads of cool replayable sort of challenge levels, whatever, it's fantastic. And so we all just kind of hoped, and we all kind of really got to expecting that the next Team Asobi thing would be VR, because we wanted that to be the case. And this is the dangerous trend in gaming recently, I think, and it's not just VR, but it affects VR more because the medium is more fragile, right? But it is that the gaming communities, we seem to be sort of building up expectations based on what we want, and then when reality doesn't match those expectations, to declare it a failure, rather than looking at and appreciating what is presented to us and just enjoying what we've got, or not, whatever, if it's good or bad, but looking at what we have and evaluating that, rather than, I think that's a healthier way to go about it. But what we've got a lot at the minute is people, and it's frustrating when it comes from high profile gaming media like Eurogamer, recently taken over by IGN. It's not a good direction, is it, to homogenize and sort of centralize this block of journalistic sort of influence under one banner, one company, IGN taking over all these other gaming outlets. It's not good. It cannot be good to have that singular control over such a high percentage of the gaming media. And it's just, the reason I'm on this specifically with Eurogamer is because they put out a tweet basically declaring or asking the question, is PSVR 2 dead because we've not being told the new Astro game is VR. It's such an overstatement. It's so dramatic. It's so clickbaity. It's so reactionary. It's so like immature to rate the value of a platform based on what you want out of it, what you wish to be the case, rather than what is there. You know, I don't think this was a thing growing up as a gamer since the late 80s. I don't remember it being like this before. You know, it was more a case of, right, this is what's on the system. This is what you're given. See if you like it, and you know, celebrate the things you do like, ignore the things you don't. But it never seemed to be this sort of like, we want specifically this thing. If we don't get that, it's all over. I'm done. It's finished. What's the point? Ah, God, that's crazy. You know, it wouldn't be crazy if there was nothing to play on PSVR 2. But the platform is flooded with games. In the first just over a year, we've got over 200 games on PSVR 2. And to look at it, relatively speaking, if you take the first year of PSVR 2 and compare it to the first year of PSVR 1, or even the first year of Quest 2, it is no competition which has the best library of games. You spoil for choice on PSVR 2, hit the ground running with some huge titles, and it's still got the highest quality VR that you can get in terms of legitimate VR releases. It's still the only place you can get real AAA without mods, and we all know there's a huge mess of things to contend with when you go down the mod route, and of course it's very expensive. You've got to get a PC that costs $2 or $3 really, and up until recently a headset that would cost $1,000. We'll get back onto that. So there seems to be this tendency to sort of just write things off and just complain if you don't get what you want. But to steelman that position, to empathise, to sympathise with that sort of that position, that disappointment or that overreaction. Yes, it would seem logical to us as VR fans that the next VR game, Astrobot, would have VR. It seems logical because it works so well on PSVR 1, and then we heard about this hybrid strategy that Sony had, so we just assumed that this would be a prime contender for a hybrid title. But again, we have to remember that this hybrid strategy was leaked. It was not officially announced by Sony. They never told us. They never used that word in public once. They've never told us that that is a strategy. It's just something that we heard of that was spoken about behind the scenes. We don't know their time frame. We don't know which games they're planning to apply that to. We don't know the financing behind that structure. But I just think we'd have a better time as gamers if we just evaluate what we get given and see what there is and enjoy what we do and ignore what we don't, rather than setting ourselves up for disappointment by declaring things a failure if we don't get what we want. And I singled out Eurogamer because they've put out these inflammatory sort of tweets on this subject. And, it's not the first time Eurogamer and IGN, these kind of places, have put out uninformed, ignorant, really, statements. I seen the tweet very recently, in fact, the same timeline. I've just got on Twitter today, and Eurogamer is saying a screenshot of a PS5 without the plates on that was in the Astrobot trailer, and it had a quote saying, "Is this PS5 Pro? Is this like a Easter egg? Is this what PS5 Pro is going to look like?" And everyone in the comments is just saying, "No, bro, it's just PS5 without the plates on. They just took the plates off. That's just what a PS5 looks like without the plates. What are you on about?" And it's just this, like, are you even gamers? You put a tweet out like that. I mean, it didn't look like it was supposed to be a joke, but it's just another example of like missing the mark and this sort of lazy journalism, potentially clickbait, potentially not really caring too much about the truth value of statements that you make because you're looking for clicks. And we've seen this a lot over the last year with a barrage of mostly unfair critique of PSVR 2 Sony when it comes to VR. You've heard it everywhere before, and I don't even. It's almost irritating to even go over it because you don't want to give it air. But it has been a common talking point, so it's something that you feel compelled to address when you see the cracks in the sort of logic behind what's being said, and that is this narrative of Sony not caring about VR. Sony they're just abandoning PSVR 2 and they're going to start winding it down, and that's it. And that narrative was fueled so much because the new Astrobot game doesn't appear to have any VR component to it. And well, there's two main things to say about that. And the first one is the lack of VR support in this new Astrobot game cannot be a reflection of what Sony feels about PSVR 2's prospects. It cannot be a reflection of Sony deciding, oh, it's not selling enough headsets, we're not going to do VR anymore, that's it. Shut down shop, nope, not doing anymore, no Astrobot, no nothing, we're just going to wind it down now. Just, stay quiet and just push it into the corner. It isn't, the new Astrobot not having VR isn't down to anything like that. It's not a reflection on PSVR 2's success or Sony's view on VRs in general, because this game started development before PSVR 2 even came out. So there was no sales figures. There was absolutely zero negative press. There was nothing at all to base a decision like that on at the time they started making this game. So this game was always designed to be a flat screen game only. And they've been trying to build up, and we're very protective of Astrobot in the VR community because we kind of see him as our mascot, because we kind of feel like we had him first. It's not entirely true. I believe Playroom came out and was pre-VR rescue, obviously pre-rescue mission, but we feel very protective of Astrobot and we feel like he's ours. But actually, the truth is, Sony are trying to turn this mascot Sony are trying to turn Astrobot into a mascot for the PS5 and PlayStation brand in general. They obviously packed in a free game with the PS5 and everybody loved it. Just a fun, simple platformer, but just executed really well. Nice presentation and awesome use of all the different capabilities of the DualSense, and they've expanded on that. So and actually looking at the trailer, what it looks like they've actually done is they've actually taken a lot of elements from Rescue Mission and put it in this game that can be played on flat screen. So this really does look like a Rescue Mission 1.5 for the flat screen. So, and if that's the case, I mean, another Astro VR game is not off the table. If they're trying to grow the brand of this character and make PS5 players fall in love with him, I mean, they're already interested because they all played that free packing game. It wasn't very long, but it was fantastic for what it was. It was a good sized game for a free game, but everybody loved it. So they're going to release this full size flat screen Astrobot game and try and get everybody in love with him. And then later down the line, Astrobot Rescue Mission 2, PSVR 2 only, is going to entice a lot more people to try out the VR because they already fucking love this character from the games that they've played on flat screen. So that could be their strategy. It could be one of several different things that they're planning. The fact that we don't know their roadmap doesn't mean they haven't got one. And this is the crazy inference that people seem to be taking every time that their wishes aren't fulfilled, every time that their expectations aren't met. You can pull something out your ass and say, this is what I really want in VR. This is what I want Sony to do. And when they don't do that, it doesn't mean they're not doing anything. This is the hard position to sell because Sony has been very quiet across the board. They've got over 20 studios. We know what about 13 of them are working on or likely to be working on. So there's still many of their studios we don't have any idea what they're doing, and many of those studios are big enough to be working on multiple projects at once. So and Sony's not going to be paying all these 20 plus studios to be sitting around doing nothing. They are doing something, and they're just not talking about it very much. And even this state of play, they've shown Astrobot is an in-house game, but the rest of it, I believe, how I don't know what percentage of this state of play was third party, but there's already rumours of a showcase coming towards the end of the year, and they're going to want to have some big event to show off PS5 Pro. I just think we need to be more sort of, well, patient is one thing, definitely, but yeah, just to base our reaction on what's happening based on what's actually given to us, rather than mourning the things that we didn't get that we thought should have happened by now. Just because it didn't happen on our time frame doesn't mean they're not going to happen, or there's other things not planned. Because yeah, it just doesn't make sense to say that because this game doesn't have VR, I mean, Sony's given up on VR. They're not sold enough headsets. They're just going to quietly push it into the corner. This game started development way before PSVR 2 even came out. Sony, and I get that it can sound like being a sort of an apologist for this, but I'm just trying to think realistically about it. What are the actual real world factors that affect the decisions that are made around PSVR 2, right? And it always comes down to money, of course, right? Sony may see that the VR market is currently driven by standalone. So they may understand that it doesn't matter whether they drop 2 or 3 amazing first-party VR games, like big budget, high risk VR games every year or whatever themselves. It won't move the needle significantly enough to justify spending AAA budgets on VR only games, because the VR market is driven by cost and accessibility. So if you're someone who's just casually sort of interested in the potential of VR, you want to dip your toe in the water, you're much more likely to pick up a Quest all in one unit, especially a Quest 2 now, which is subsidized and discounted ridiculously by Facebook, who has infinite money and can afford to do that. You've now got the Quest 2, which is on sale for a ridiculously low price. That's what people are going to go to if they just want to see what VR is about, because that's where we are at in the stage of evolution of VR as a gaming medium still. It's only the second generation, really, of proper, legitimate home VR. Second generation. So you could say we're at the sort of NES stage of VR. We had the Atari 2600s, the PSVR 1, and now we're sort of in the NES era for VR. So it's still growing. It's still something that people are sort of unsure about. And they're going to go for the standalone, which is cheap, accessible. You don't need anything else to run it. So the point of that is that the VR market is currently not driven by, the consumer choice in VR is not driven by quality of games, unfortunately. For those of us that have been playing since 2016, and we've gone through that phase of sort of lots of sort of gimmicky, shorter experiences, as fun as there were, we were ready for something bigger. People that have been playing VR for a long time, we're desperate for those bigger, high production values, more involving, more realistic, more high-end graphics and more complex experiences. And that's what gagging for. But we're in the minority. You know, the majority of VR sales are still just casuals playing about with things like Beat Saber, right? Awesome as they are, we are this subset within a subset within a subset of gamers that we aren't the main financial drive of anybody's plans, right? So I personally feel just lucky that we're getting anything on the level of games like Saints and Sinners Chapter 2. Behemoth is coming, something really to be excited about. There's a lot of cool games. I'll link in the low bar. There's Polish Paul recently put out a video of 40 upcoming PSVR 2 games. We are not going to struggle for things to play over the next year. It's not slowing down. I already have a huge backlog, and it is not slowing down whatsoever. Like, it's kind of intimidating the amount of games that I have already bought and haven't played and are coming up that I definitely will want to play. So I just cannot get into the mindset of complaining about one game not coming that I would have liked to have played at this time. Again, there may well be another Astro VR game in future, but it's really hard for me to get sort of disappointed and complain about one game not coming that I would have liked to, when there's so many things that are coming that I will be excited about and am excited about and will enjoy. But you see a lot of it online, and it's it can get a bit depressing. And some of the criticism is valid. I would say that Team Asobi, Sony, PlayStation, haven't controlled the narrative very well. So they must know that there is a lot of hype for a new Astrobot VR game. They know that PlayStation is receiving a lot of unfair, in my opinion, attacks over its supposedly being abandoned by Sony already, right? They know that it's under the cosh. They know that it cannot compete in sales with the Quest, and there's this narrative that it's failing, right? So then when your most beloved PSVR 1 character, and again, it wasn't exclusively a VR character, but when your most beloved PSVR mascot comes back and has zero mention of plans for VR, it is a kick in the bollocks. I mean, it's risky, is what it is. It's risky because, and you're seeing it online now, and I don't know what percentage of these comments are genuine. A lot of it, I'm sure, is trolls, rival, butthurt people just stirring shit. I mean, there's a lot of that going on, of course, and troll farms, like literally industry-controlled, rival-controlled bot farms. Like this is a thing that happens now. So it's hard to know what percentage of online comments are genuine, and those that aren't. But you're already seeing a lot of people saying, "Oh, that's it. I'm getting rid of PSVR 2. Sony have given up. That's it. That's the death knell. Yep, that's sealed it. That's sealed it. Because this one game's not coming. That's it. No point anymore. I'm selling the PSVR 2. It's shit all of a sudden. All the games that I bought on it are shit. I take back all of the enjoyment that I pretended to have about them, and none of the other games coming are going to be worth it. Nope, this one game's not coming apparently at this time, so that's it. It's over. I'm out. Tonight, Matthew. I'm out. Or whatever. Yeah, you're seeing this. So there is this. So you get this feeling that Sony's not doing very good a job of controlling the narrative. But it's a complex situation, because you could argue as well that they don't really care to try and combat these types of negative narratives, because they seem to operate on their own timeline. They don't seem to like to announce things years and years before they come out. And it might be a little case of them, because they're so far ahead in the console war, they don't really need to sort of stick their neck out, because they're winning, at least between versus Microsoft. Nintendo's a different thing happening over there. But when it comes to VR, they might be sort of having that same sort of mindset. It's like, we're going to do what we're going to do, and shut up. You're not going to pressure us into, frantically dropping little hints of things that might happen in 2 or 3 years. We've got our schedule. We'll tell you what we want to tell you when we want to tell you it. That's kind of the vibe with Sony recently, for better or worse. But it's just, and it's legitimate for us to want them to show us what they've got, what they're capable of, because we saw some brilliant first-party Sony games on PSVR 1. And there's only been a couple of those so far on PSVR 2. So we sort of, we're eager for more. We're eager for them to prove the naysayers wrong. And it's like, you kind of have this, I'm invested in the platform. I absolutely love it. I think it's fantastic. I think it's the most user-friendly, most complete, most immersive VR experience you can get at the minute. You can't discount the value of head haptics. It's the only headset with it, right, currently. And it adds so much to the immersion. I can't imagine playing VR now without head haptics. Eye tracking has got some fantastic applications. Not enough yet, but the potential is there. And I've thought this since the start, since day one, really. It really seems like Sony have sort of are playing the long game, and they've tried to future-proof PSVR 2 with these features that are likely become more common or more desirable. Certainly eye tracking. It's become quite obvious that eye tracking is a cheat code to making VR performance, to boosting VR performance so much. The whole thing of using, so you can have the highest resolution, the best quality image where you're looking, and saving processing power on the peripheral, which you don't see in high definition anyway, because that's how your eyes work. Such an obvious and genius and effective way of boosting VR performance. So that is a future-proofed feature of PSVR 2 that could potentially see that headset last onto a second generation of consoles. It's absolutely not unimaginable that PSVR 2 could live on to PS6, because the performance of that headset is only really limited by the console that's running the games. The resolution of PSVR 2 is high enough that there's still a long way to go before you've seen the best out of it in terms of performance. Using eye tracking gives us a glimpse into the increase in performance, but we're still even with eye tracking on PSVR 2 via the PS5, you can still tell it hasn't reached its ceiling. So it could be the case that Sony see this as a real long-term project, that they are taking their sweet time with PSVR 2 and letting it grow, and letting technology catch up to this, and the user base catch up to where it makes financial sense to start spending big money on making games for it. But I know that's not a perfect argument, and again, I don't want to sort of stray into sort of apologetics for Sony. I'm just trying to understand the situation, because one thing I certainly don't think is that they have any intention of abandoning it. And some of the stuff they've done recently shows that they are putting it front and center and pushing it and promoting it. A price drop, putting some games on PS Plus Premium and PC compatibility. They're opening up its range of use. Now that it is compatible with PC, and that will become smoother as more compatibility is made for it. It is the cheapest high-end headset with an OLED screen that you can get by a factor of at least 2. And again, with the haptics and the eye tracking, it's got a feature set that you can't find on any other PC compatible headset. So it does make it desirable for PC owners. It also makes streaming a lot easier and lots of other benefits. But they are opening it up. It's just perhaps not happening at the pace that we hoped. But again, are those hopes realistic? Is it fair for us to expect everything within a short space of time in a market that is really, really difficult to crack? Like, again, I'm just grateful for anything that we get in that regard, because I don't want to go standalone. Like, I don't want to be stuck on those old PS2 era graphics running on mobile chipset. I cannot stay there. I cannot, now that I know what is possible with high-end performance VR, things like Resident Evil Village, Gran Turismo 7, No Man's Sky, you know, go down the list. The Saints and Sinners 2 on PSVR 2 is generations, several generations graphics better than on Quest. Obviously, because it's running off PS5 major console, not a mobile chipset. But like, I am ready for that high end stuff. So like, I'm grateful that we've got it. And Sony have invested in the hardware of that platform and given us this user-friendly, feature-rich, affordable comparatively compared to other PC VR headsets. And again, there aren't any headsets that have this feature set, but they've given us this platform, and we are spoiled for choice, and we do have this fantastic library of games already after just over a year. So I find it hard to really complain or feel salty about any of this stuff, you know, when we don't get what we want, because we have so much. And it doesn't make sense to me, this narrative that Sony are giving up when they're doing all these other moves to promote it, putting it in state of plays, putting games on premium, reducing the price of the headset in a promotion, PC support, and all this other stuff. So, you know, yes, we'd like to see first-party games because we had some really good ones on PSVR 1, but they didn't come straight away. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that Sony's first-party VR games really started coming out around 2 years after PSVR 1 came out. There was a lot of sort of indie bullshit at the start, perforated, of course, by Resident Evil 7 that came out very early. Again, part of this fantastic relationship that Sony has with Capcom that has continued, thankfully, onto PSVR 2. But yeah, we had Wipeout, we had Everybody's Golf, we had Astrobot, but they didn't come right at the start of PSVR 1. And I don't remember us all sort of complaining that there weren't any Sony first-party games to shout about at the launch in the first year. We were just amazed by this technology, and I'm still sort of there. I'm still amazed by this technology, and it is, you know, the refinement of it. You know, the better controls, the better tracking, the higher resolution, the OLED screen, HDR, the head haptics, all of these advancements that we've got, this embarrassment of riches of really cutting edge technology given to us by a company that is I don't want to say impossible, but it's very difficult to make a profit in this market in this way when you have this huge barrier to entry of needing a PS5 first before you even be able to get the headset. There's so many things going against the success of PSVR 2 from a logistical point of view. No matter what Sony does, no matter what games they make, there are other market factors that will not be in any way affected by Sony's actions in terms of software. They've created this platform, and we've got a lot of cool shit on it. And I just think they're playing the long game. I think it's crazy to take from this state of play that Sony's sort of giving up because there's no Astrobot VR on this particular next Astro game. Yeah. So that's a long rant in it. And there's probably lots of other stuff that I forgot to say, but I'll stop here because Jesus. Revival, Wolverhampton, next weekend. June 8th and 9th. I will be there on the 9th with my virtual boy. Come and play some Red Alarm. Come and say hello. And that's it, guys. All right. In the next one. Bye.